Today, I would like to talk to you about 3 beliefs that prevent anyone from growing. And the first belief that holds back our personal growth was described by psychologist Dunning and Kruger. This is known as the dunning-kruger effect. What is the core idea? The core idea is that the less competent a person is, the more confident they are. The more competent they are, the more they doubt themselves. Due to this lack of confidence, a person goes through certain stages. The first stage is called unconscious incompetence, when a person doesn't even realize they lack skills, yet they are rock solid in their confidence because they have absolutely no doubts. They get an idea in their head and they are extremely confident in it at this stage. There's usually a lot of overconfidence. People take overconfident actions and then it leads to mistakes. The second stage is false competence. False competence is when a person considers themselves an expert. The third stage is conscious incompetence, when a person realizes they actually lack knowledge. And from this exact moment, a person begins to grow further and truly evaluate their competence or incompetence. From this point on, real personal development begins. For example, in aviation, when I first got into aviation, I looked up the statistics for aviation accidents. And I saw an interesting chart. First, it turns out the highest number of crashes happens in the initial stage when a person accumulates their first 100 flight hours. Then from 100 up to about 1,200 flight hours, the accident rate simply drops. Statistics show the accident rate steadily goes down. Starting around 1,200 flight hours, the accident rate rises again, hitting a second peak. And from about 1,700 to 1,800 flight hours, the accident rate drops, and around 5,000 to 6,000 flight hours, the rate makes another small peak. And then it only decreases all the way up to 10,000 flight hours. So what does this tell us? Look, first, when rookies come in and just learn to fly a plane, they experience unconscious incompetence. You see, at the very beginning, they are afraid of everything. And this is where they crash because they don't understand. They are incompetent. They just don't know. Then, at some point, when they've more or less learned to fly and start logging between 100 and 1,200 hours, they fly and their competence grows and grows. And at some point, they start feeling like they already know everything. They think they know it all, and they develop false competence. They think they've seen it all already. And right at 1,200 hours, the rate goes up again. A second peak of accidents appears. After that, the person realizes their incompetence, starts actually learning, and the rate drops and drops. And then around 5,000 to 6,000 hours, the person develops blinders. They are already highly experienced, and they get the feeling they've seen and know everything. So they start neglecting safety protocols. They start neglecting certain standard operating procedures that directly affect safety. Interestingly, this dunning-kruger effect isn't about dividing people into smart and stupid. It's actually something every person goes through when they start doing something new. For example, if you want to take up photography, you will absolutely go through all these stages. The first stage is unconscious incompetence. The second stage is false competence, when you learn to take your first pictures and you think, oh, this is so easy. Turns out there's nothing complicated about it. And then the third stage hits when you realize it's far more difficult than you initially thought. This is the third stage, conscious incompetence. And starting from this conscious incompetence, you finally step onto the right path of self-development and self-improvement. The next belief that prevents us from growing, I've noticed that by their 40s or 50s, it varies of course, but on average, people start thinking that they've practically seen it all in life. They've seen it all, they know it all, they've been everywhere, they are highly experienced, and so on. And interestingly, the more a person has seen, the more events they've been in the thick of. The more eventful and rich their life is, the deeper they fall into this illusion that they already know and have seen everything. And this experience accumulated over the years creates an illusion that this world is predictable. That basically the exact same patterns work everywhere. And that there's really no point in learning anything new since everything repeats itself one way or another, and this experience becomes very heavy baggage for them. What does this experience tell them? It tells them that since I've already seen so much, whatever happens next will just be a repetition of what happened in the past. But the future is always unpredictable. The future always arrives when we least expect it, not in the way we expect it, and not in the form we expect it. And that is why being 100% prepared for the future is practically impossible. Having experience is great, of course, but I would highly recommend treating your experience more like a reference book, meaning you study a new topic and then you cross-reference it with your experience, seeing if it correlates with it or not. Therefore, the second belief that strongly holds was back from growing is the belief that we know everything, that we've seen it all, and that we can do anything. That's why I'd recommend being more careful with your past experience and not overestimating it. And the third belief, or rather not just one belief, but a whole set of beliefs, is a flawed logical framework. Quite often, our common sense doesn't match formal logic. Here's what I want to talk about. There is a certain chronological sequence of events, and there is a cause and effect relationship of events. So very often people confuse a chronological sequence with causation. If some events happen after something else, people very often assume it happened because of it. And here I want to clearly point out that just because an event happened after something, it doesn't mean it happened because of it. And this is incredibly important in business, especially and in human relationships. You know, in the kaizen methodology, there is a rule where you must strictly trace the cause and effect relationship. An example to make it easier to understand. Let's assume the wind blew and the leaves fell from the tree. Our everyday logic suggests that the leaves fell because the wind blew. But in reality, the leaves fell because autumn has arrived, and here is a second layer that is crucial to distinguish. Surface level causes versus root causes. So to make it easier to figure out or to not get confused by causation and correlation and the root causes, because usually when solving problems, unless you fix the root cause, the problem itself won't be resolved. For this, the Kaizen methodology has a tool called the 5 whys. When an event happens, ask the question, why? Let's use this leaf example. First, the leaves fell. Why? Because the wind blew. And why did the wind blow? Or why? Did the leaves fall? There could be 2 branches. Blew because the weather is getting worse. The leaves fell because autumn has arrived. And why do leaves fall when autumn arrives? Because it gets cold, the tree sap stops flowing, and the leaves die off. And why? Does the sap stop flowing and the leaves die? Because it's getting cold. Now, why is it getting cold? Because the seasons changed. Well, I won't go further into how the Earth moves away from the sun to the far side of its orbit and so on. But the point is this. We understand that the root cause is the change. And you ask the question why 5 times, you will always get to the root cause, which, by the way, is much easier and cheaper to fix. Here, let me give you a good pro tip. Every single time you face any problem, it's a proven fact that solving the root cause is vastly cheaper, easier, and faster than dealing with the symptoms. So, when a flawed logical framework is hindering your personal growth, in order to remove it and eliminate it, always make it a rule or a habit to dig down to the root causes. And this 5 whys tool will keep you from straying off the right path of true cause and effect relationships.